to the No Morning Show here on CTT. I am Natalie Lagore, and in studio with us at this time is the new Executive Director of WASA, Dr. Lennox, who is here to talk about the transformation plan that he has for the Water and the Storage Authority. But he sent me a beautiful PowerPoint presentation yesterday, and one of the things that I saw that really stood out to me is what he's going to be able to do to get the buy-in, not just from the customers, but from the workers, and especially from the union. How is he going to be able to do this? Let's welcome to the program Dr. Lennox Seeley. Good morning to you, Dr. Seeley.
Good morning, Natalie.
Thank you so much for being with us here.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
You feeling nervous?
Welcomed all your welcome viewers. It's really nice that you've invited me.
Yes, and you are officially my first guest to the Now TTT Morning Show.
Oh, okay, good. What do I get for that?
Well, let us wait. The population will decide based on how you answer the questions. Is that fair enough?
Wonderful, fair enough.
All right, great. So let's start with that particular thing. You've been appointed as Executive Director of WASA. The first question is, will you remain as its chairman?
The duties of the chairman have been subsumed in the position of Executive Director.
Wouldn't there be a conflict of interest, though?
Right. You could well imagine I would have anticipated that. And what the Section 17 of the Act, the WASA Act, says is that there is the option for the government to appoint an Executive Director, and that Executive Director will also be the CEO. When I was first appointed the chairman, the idea was that I would bring my transformation experience. When the cabinet met, and of course the cabinet report is now out in the newspaper, with some inaccuracies which I will address, the cabinet was presented, or came up with rather, three options. First, the privatization of WASA. Secondly, the transformation of WASA. And thirdly, the closure of WASA and the startup of a new water company.
That's interesting. I didn't hear of that one before.
The headline in the Express yesterday is misleading. The government did not choose the option of closure of WASA and startup of a new company. It felt that with my transformation experience, they went with option B, which is to bring someone in who knows about transformation. And if I remained as chairman, I would not have had the authority to implement many of the initiatives that you would have seen in that PowerPoint presentation. So that I was asked then to be the Executive Director, which the law gives me the power to also be the CEO. And that's how that came about. So there's no, and I saw in the newspaper the armchair experts, many of them talking about the governance arrangements. Actually, I report to the minister. The minister reports to the cabinet. The board reports to me.
Who is the armchair experts?
No, there are many people, and they edit the editorials and so on, talking about the governance arrangements. But I have a contract with deliverables, and I have to report to the minister. The minister can fire me at any time.
Right. But you understand why people are interested in what's happening in WASA.
I
wouldn't even call them armchair experts. I'd call them people who have been affected negatively over the years.
Well, I was talking about the customers here.
Authority. But I mean, the armchair experts are also customers.
Well, yes,
everybody in this country is a customer of WASA.
Sure. But I am saying, without understanding, without the explanation, people came to a conclusion. So I'm very happy to be able to explain it. All
right, well, let's get into it. In that transformation plan that you sent to me, as I said, one of the things that you're focusing on is the buy-in. How are you going to be able to achieve that, to get the people to be on board, especially when you have a union that, in my mind, is extremely antagonistic? You have people who work in WASA, and we hear about the overstaffing, we hear about the inefficiencies. How are you going to be able to change that culture within WASA?
Well, I've just come out of leading a team that transformed and started the transformation of the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission. We finished that in November. One of the first things I always do, because I know there are good people in every organization. People don't go to work to... I'm not a theory X person, I'm a theory Y person. People don't go to work not to work. They go to work hoping that they're going to an organization where they can work. So the first thing I did was to invite the employees to make recommendations as to what they feel could happen.
And this is something you're going to do here?
I got 66 pages
Wow. So this is something you're definitely going to do at WASA
Good.
to see.
I have appointed a committee which has started to look already at the quick wins in those 66. There are many, many ways that can start the transformation. Now, when you start having employees feeling confident that someone is in place who is listening to them and implementing, it is the thing that ignites the process. So that has started. Today, I'm launching WASA 2024.
So that's when you think you'll be finished with the transformation?
Well, the transformation will not be finished. I have to quote here, some of you who have been around a long time might have heard of Osborne and Gabler. They worked for the American government, and they were asked that question over and over. How long will it take to show that the transformation is working? And their response was 5 years. So in 3 years, I am not going to complete the transformation. It wouldn't be me. My contract is 3 years. There's a train that's off the track, and I'm neither a magician nor a fool. I'm simply going to put the train back on the track and going to hand it over to someone else.
All right,
my job is short term. My job is to implement certain key things and hand it over.
Let's talk about some of those key things, Dr. Seeley. Okay. One of the things we hear all the time, we look at the production of water at WASA with the desalination plant, with WASA itself. We look at the aged infrastructure. We look at its capacity to store, you know, and we look at distribution. Good. What are some of those things that you think you'll have to?
I'll take one of them at a time.
All right, no problem. Let's get through it, because you know what?
Yeah, okay.
The population, I guarantee you that a lot of people are paying attention to this interview.
Of course.
Not because they love Natalie or Dr. Seeley, but because they want to know what's going to be happening with WASA.
Good.
You know, because it affects all of us.
Let's start. The first thing is that my perspective is an international one. There's something called the International Water Association, where all of the people who head water authorities have discussions. And I think it's in the first 5, the issue of infrastructure. I always have made the comparison between the 3 utilities that have been constantly maligned: water, lights, and telephone. I remember when telco poops. Well, you may not know, you may not know. Some of the guys here will know the Calypso.
I live in Jamaica. I know how mobile poops.
So first of all, I always say that cellular technology, fiber optics, have come to the rescue of TSTT. TNTech has basically privatized its power generation capacity. WASA has attempted, you may not know, the Severn Trent attempt in the 80s, but WASA has never really gone through a complete transformation. Now, the thing about electricity, telephone, water, high risk, most vulnerable. Every good plumber could give you an illegal connection. It's very difficult to steal electricity. Last year, someone died trying to do it. It's very difficult to steal cell minutes. Lots of people would love to do that. So we are in a high-risk situation. So the first thing is just producing water only is a big challenge. Plus, I spent half day at desal, and in the laboratory, I learned of the deterioration in the water quality in the Gulf of Paria. So we have a product, we are managing a product that is deteriorating. 1, it is disappearing from the rivers. 2, it is high risk. That means many people can access it without us knowing, and therefore it makes collection, harvesting, distribution more challenging than other public utilities.
I saw that where we talk about the decline in productions, but one of the things I also saw in the report that you shared with me is that it is just 10% below the capacity of what it can do in terms of production.
Right.
That's what's
that's a positive thing.
Hold on, that's a positive thing. To me, I was also not shocked, but recognized is that Barbados and Jamaica has so much less water per capita.
Right. Okay.
And somehow they survive. I also know that Barbados and Jamaica are metered. So is this something that the Water and Sewage Authority is considering now?
That has been a discussion for a very long time. I am not aware of all of the roadblocks in the past. Not all of them. I'm not aware, quite honestly, but I do know that the subject has come up. I've seen proposed costs for metering, and I've seen various CEOs talk about metering. I don't know why it's not implemented, but certainly metering is on the cards. A certain percentage of industrial customers are already metered. New developments are metered. But here's the challenge. Yesterday evening around 5 o'clock, I'm standing at the corner of Henry and Duke Street with one of my engineers. I'm looking down into a hole. There's a leak, and TSTT passes, TNTech passes, and we are trying to figure out how to get in there without. Okay. So I'm saying that I'm making a link here between what actually we have to do to make sure that there's accurate distribution and the infrastructure. Yesterday I told the minister, yesterday Sunday, that one of the major projects we need is to have a utility commission, a permanent utility commission, and map everything that is under the ground. That would help us with our distribution system.
I agree with you, but one of the things we've been hearing consistently from this government is the challenge of money. How are you going to be able to do that? Lehanta stepped out of the chair as far as we're aware, because the proposal that he put before cabinet was an expensive proposal.
I heard so.
Okay. So what are you going to be able to do differently to be able to afford all of these changes that are so necessary?
Good. My minister has been talking to all the international institutions. International institutions watch at a country and they determine their own mind, just like you and I, whether the country is serious about change or not. On Wednesday, I'm going to be meeting with someone from the IDB to talk, for example, about looking at all our water treatment plants. And obviously, if we don't have the money, we're going to have to do it through loans. It's not rocket science. And that you're going to see over the next year a number of projects of that nature. Every plant I've visited so far is in need of some kind of refurbishment or upgrade. So there are a lot of no-brainers that I'm faced with. I don't have to work rocket science. There are a number of things that I need to do as a transformation manager. So we have to borrow. The simple answer to your question. We will have to borrow.
But do you think the government will give you that leeway, will support you in the borrowing? Because when we look at the debt to GDP ratio of Trinidad and Tobago, we are already in some hot waters, so to speak.
I will leave that answer to the Minister of Finance, not me. But I believe, from my minister's point of view, with whom I have an excellent relationship, I believe he is working hard for us to have the money to make the transformation. Because we know how important water is, and we know that water is vulnerable to manipulation. If you know that, there are no secrets there. So yes, we're going to be pushing to have
loans. Dr. Seeley, unfortunately, we're coming to the end of this interview, but I do promise we will have a part 2. That's what happens when you're having fun. The time just goes by.
I'm not ready to explain to you what I'm going to do.
No, but we will have a part 2, that's for sure, so that we can continue the discussion.
But I want to say 2 things, okay, that are critical for transformation and my role. When I launch WASA 2024 today, I go back to my office. I'm sending out a second bulletin which will explain things. I'm going to tell everyone, and I'm saying it now, I'm going to give 5% of my salary into a fund, and I'm going to ask our technical officers who are out there to identify people who need a tank or some kind of access to water, right? And I'm going to ask every employee who comes to work tomorrow if they can contribute $10 a month to that fund. And I'm positive a lot of people who are at the end of the pipeline and so on who have issues, I'm going to ask my technical officers to help them get water. So I want to put my mouth and money in the same place.
I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah.
But in terms of organizational culture, it's not always easy to change. And I keep looking
5 years.
I keep looking especially at the union and, you know, how unions, the roles that union play in getting workers to buy into something or to just ignore it, especially when we have stories, you know, that's suggesting that the unions are kind of just trying not to get things done, not to support audits. How will you attack or treat with the unions to get them to this, to buy into what you're trying to do?
I'm strongly influenced by a document called The Imperatives of Adjustment that was written by the late William Demas, where he spoke about the entire British Caribbean. He's talked about the movement from London, the Conservatives, Labour, and so on. And he identified the fact that people who have gone through the colonial experience and who now have this position of importance in various ways, it's a period of confidence that we must go through. So as far as I'm concerned, people are workers first. They are paid by an organization before they are union members.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep working with the people, with the workers, especially those people who want to see WASA really work well. And there are a lot of them. I have discovered them. They have responded positively to me, and I am defending them. I am not making any excuse for WASA, right? And I'm not dealing with the past. I'm dealing with the future. I have a job to do. I know I have good people in the organization right next to me who works for me every day. I am totally satisfied with a number of persons I've met, and I'm going to be working with them. I'm not going to let, all those other things distract me.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you have a task ahead of you, but Dr.
Seeley,
we will have a part 2 to this conversation.
Oh, yes. And
we
I will
have
enjoy
to,
that.
because there are so many questions that we still have to get through.
Lovely.
We have to look at that aged infrastructure.
Yeah,
we have
and
to
that's
look at
number
the distribution, what you're going to be able to change there.
Right.
And
yeah.
even the production, if it's declining, what you're going to do to get that
Yeah.
back up.
Remember, we produce a lot of water. That's the good news.
3 times the amount of Barbados or Jamaica. But then
but we got to get it to the people.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Seeley, thank you so much for being with us
My
on the
pleasure.
No Morning Show this morning.
My pleasure.
Part 2, not
I'm
next week.
looking forward to part 2.
Not next week, because next week is International Women's, I'm saying week. We're not just celebrating a day, right? We're celebrating me for the entire week.
Okay,
so the following week we'll have that part.
I'm sorry for these guys.
Dr. Lennox Seeley, the new Executive Director of the Water and Storage Authority, and he's saying he's going to take 5% of his salary and put into a fund, and he's asking workers $10 a month. Let's do this so that we can help those who are in the business, who need that water, who need that tank, whatever it is, he's going to be trying to help them. We take a break and we'll be back with you.